Want to say Kal, Halalium, Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Harakakodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone Rule Well. And shalom to all the sincere Akim out there across the four winds, the four corners of the earth, pushing this word in truth and sincerity. So this is going to be a lesson going into an overview of the prison industrial complex. Mass incarceration, which is one of the main curses, man, that have befallen the Israelites, man, especially you so-called African Americans from the tribe of Judah, man. You know what I mean? The prison industrial complex, mass incarceration, man. So I'm going to filter everything through the scriptures, man, the holy scriptures, and go through some analysis, man, some prior analysis that I have done on the topic and some research that is out there, man. You know what I mean? So with that, I'm going to hit the scriptures first and correlate everything, filter everything to the scriptures and go through some analysis, man. Some historical analysis of mass incarceration, the prison industrial complex. So this is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy power, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Jump down to verse 48. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. So, hey, the prison system is nothing but what? Slavery by another name, man. You know what I mean? And a Judite chick, man, Michelle Alexander, she have a good book going into that, man. The New Jim Crow. You know what I mean? Showing you how, hey, man, slavery never really ended, man. Segregation, Jim Crow, never really ended, man. Judah, man, especially the tribe of Judah, but the whole nation of Israel, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, man. Hey, we still in slavery, man. The prison system, man, especially unemployment, man. You know what I mean? You work in the lowest socio-economic jobs. All of these are slavery by another name, man. Making $8 an hour, $9 an hour. You know what I mean? Hey, Esau is the devil, man, and he still has us in captivity to this day. So, a quick overview, introduction of an overview of the prison industrial complex. So this is from Google. You could get this on Wikipedia easy. The term prison industrial complex is derived from the military industrial complex of the 1950s, which describes the attribution of the rapid expansion of the U.S. inmate population to the political influence of private prison companies and businesses that supply goods and services to government prison agencies for profit. Who own these private companies and businesses? Esau, man. Esau eat on the so-called white man, man. They own these private prisons, these private companies that supply these goods and services to these businesses, man. Making boku money, man. Off of the backs of who? You so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans. The most common agents of the prison industrial complex are corporations that contract cheap labor, construction companies, surveillance technology, vendors, companies that operate prison food services, and medical facilities, prison guard unions, private probation companies, lawyers, and lobby groups that represent them. So it's a whole cabal, man. A whole cabal. What is Psalms 82? The heathen has taken crafty counsel against the nation of Israel, man. This is the Psalms 83, Salakia. This is the book of Psalms, chapter 83, verse 1. Keep not thou silence, O power. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O power. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. Verse 3, they have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thine hidden ones. Verse 4, they have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent, they are confederate against thee, man. Starting with Esau, Edom, man, and Dung, man. So you have private probation companies, man, lawyers, amen, surveillance technology vendors, man. What? Oppressing Jake, man, using Jake for what? Cheap prison labor, man. And you see that, man, in one of the main good examples of cheap labor, man, using Jake for cheap labor is a prison down there in Louisiana. The Angola State Prison down there in Louisiana, man. You know what I mean? They have Jake Judah down there in Louisiana in fucking hardcore slavery, man. Picking tomatoes and cutting oranges. You know what I mean? All type of fruits. And you have an Edomite and a horse with a shotgun. And you have Jake in the fields, man, working the plantation. Ecclesiastes 10 verse 7, man. I have seen princes walking as servants and servants upon horses, man. Briefly paraphrasing, man. So what? They're using Jake for cheap labor, man. And you ask any Jake, man. You know, brothers out there know Jakes that bring to jail, prison. They be paying Jake what? 25, 10 cents an hour, man. And all these major companies, Walmart, McDonald's, you name it, Wendy's, know what I mean? All these companies, Amazon, all these companies contract prison labor, man. Why? Because they could pay them fucking 10 cents, man. So if you pay a man 10 cents and you making and you selling something for $10, your cost to make something is 10 cents, and you paying a man $10. What is you making a profit thousands of percentage over, man. so these devils know what they're doing. They know what they're doing, man. When they're locking Jacob for having a dime bag, man, which we ain't promoting that, man. You know what I mean? You shouldn't have no damn dime bag on you. But Esau is the devil. Esau is bombing civilians to hell and back. But you want to lock Jacob for stealing a TV, man. For stealing a pair of shoes, man. For stealing some pizza, man. For selling some drugs that you gave him. You damn devil. Continuing with this quick introduction of the private industrial complex, prison industrial complex. The portrayal of prison building expansion as a means of creating employment opportunities and the utilization of inmate labor are particularly harmful elements of the prison industrial complex, as they boast clear economic benefits at the expense of incarcerated people. So who's benefiting, man? Who's making the boku money off of the prison industrial complex, the privatization of prisons, man? Esau, Edom, man. Cause he has you in slavery, man. Working for 10 cents an hour, man. You know what I mean? Making thousands of percentage profit off of you, man. Jake, Judah, you know what I mean? And the rest of the tribes are down, but specifically the tribe of Judah, man. Amen. The term also refers to the network of participants who prioritize personal financial gain over rehabilitating criminals. So these devils, man, the U.S. government, you know what I mean, run by Esau, Edom, Amalek, and down, they prioritize what? Financial gain, man, over rehabilitating, quote-unquote rehabilitating, you know what I mean, getting Jake back on track to enter back into common society. No, man, they don't give a shit about that, man. They lock your ass up to do what? Put your ass right back in slavery, man. You know what I mean? Profit off of you, man. You become a human resource, man. Labor, man. And that's how you become rich, man. That's how you become rich. That's how the slave masters become rich, man. Having slaves, man. That's real wealth, man. Because if you have 10 slaves, man, you can get them to do whatever the fuck you want them to do, man. If you want them to build a house for you, you know what I mean? You want them to plant whatever crop, whether it be cotton, tomato, tobacco, sugar cane, and you're selling it on the market. And guess what? You having them plant and labor and process all these goods, man. And guess what? You ain't paying them nothing, man. So you're making what? 100% plus profit, man. Because you have no cost. Simple, basic economics, man. Finance, man. If you don't have no cost of goods sold, your profit is 100% plus, man. Salakia. So I'm gonna get into how in the Constitution of these United States of America, you Jakes, you Judites, you are still slaves, man. Well, when you enter the criminal justice system, man, when you are incarcerated. So the year the Civil War ended, the U.S. amended the Constitution to prohibit slavery and involuntary servitude, but it purposefully left in one big loophole for people convicted of crimes. See, Esau was a devil, man. Was a devil. Esau is a devil, man. He always leaving in loopholes, man. Leaving in loopholes to catch you Jakes up, man. And leaving in loopholes, wicked loopholes, for him to escape, man. Whenever he get caught up, man. Man like Jeffrey Epstein, man. You know what I mean? Donald Trump. Different ways to maneuver the bankruptcy system, the tax system. So they pay. Yeah, Amazon, man, who is a trillion dollar company, man, paying zero taxes. Why? Because they have the best fucking accountants and shit to manipulate the tax system. Where they fucking pay zero taxes, man. Hey, these devils is devils for real, man. The 13th Amendment, ratified in 1865, says neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. So what they say? Neither slavery or involuntary servitude shall exist except for a punishment of a crime. Except you get locked the fuck up, man. So you get locked up and you subject to slavery and involuntary servitude. What is involuntary servitude? That is working against your will, man. Against your consent. That's involuntary servitude. Scholars, activists, and prisoners have linked that exception clause to the rise of a prison system that incarcerates black people, Judites, African Americans, at more than 5 times the rate of white people, and profits off of their unpaid and underpaid labor. So you Negroes, man, you are subject to incarceration 5 times the rate of so-called white people, man. Edomites. So what that shows you, man, your equality is all bullshit, man. Know what I mean? What we see after the passage of the 13th Amendment, and this is off the history.com, man, a scholarly publication, the history.com, man. They have a channel on cable TV and all, man. What we see after the passage of the 13th Amendment is a couple of different things converging, says Andrea Armstrong, a law professor at Loyola University in New Orleans. First, the 13th Amendment text allows for involuntary servitude where convicted of a crime. At the same time, black codes in the South created new types of offenses, especially attitudinal offenses, not showing proper respect, those types of things. So if a Jake down south, especially if a Jake was to look at Edomite in his face, man, the Edomite would be like, what the fuck you eyeballing me for, man? And beat his ass, man. Or could get him locked up, man. Call the police, man. And we see that with who? Emmett Till, man. So-called whistle a lot of white women, man. And he got his face dented in, man. By them Edomites down there, man. So this whole prison system, man, is all to catch up Jake, man. To catch Jake up. Let me get that scripture. To catch Jake up, man. It's all wickedly set up, man. The system, a pit, man. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 42, verse 22. But this is a people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes, man. Kind of snared up, man. Trapped up. Kind of, that's what they call what? The trap house, Jake, Judah. Call what? The drug dealing house. The trap house, man. Because what happens, man? At the end of the day, you get locked up, man. And become a fucking slave for Esau, man. They are all of them snared in holes, and they are hid in prison houses. Come, and America is just a big prison house for Jake, man. A captivity for Jake. And then you are literally held in prison houses, man. You have over millions of Jakes, man. Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans locked up in the prison system. And you have millions more under criminal supervision. Whether it be probation, parole, you know what I mean? All these things, man, criminal supervision. So if you violate, if you as much as get a parking ticket, you're going straight back to jail, man. Straight to be a slave again, man. That's why a lot of Jakes, they just say, yo, man, if they offer me 5 years probation or serve a year in jail, a year in prison, hey, a lot of Jakes will take the year in prison, man, because that probation shit, that shit is just meant to lock you up, man. The probation parole system is just meant to get you chopped up back in the system, man. Because if you in mere contact with a person that you might not know is a convicted felon, man, and you going back to jail, man. You in the vicinity of a crime scene, you going back to jail, man, to be a slave to Esau. So Esau set this system up, hey, to chop Jake up, to snare Jake, snare Judah and the rest of the tribes on them. They are for a prey and none deliver it, for a spoil and none say it restore. Can we are prey to Esau either, man? To his policemen, which dates back to slavery, the police patrol to catch runaway slaves, which unto this day, man, still catches still one of the main tools used by the powers that be to lock Jake up, man, to harass Jake, man, to persecute Jake. The police department, man. And none deliver it, man. Why? Because you Jakes have turned your back, for the most part, have turned your back on your Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. That's why you end up in the predicaments that you are in, man. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 51, verse 20. Thy sons are fated, they lie at the head of all the streets, as a wild bull in a net. They are full of the fury of the Lord, the rebuke of thy power. Come on, you see it in every neighborhood, man. Jake on the corner, man. Up to nothing but no good, man. That's why what happens, man. They find their ass in the jail system, in the prison system, incarcerated to be a slave to Esau, man. Because they're hard-headed, man. They refuse the correction of the Heavenly Father, of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. So they get their due compensation to be a slave to Esau, man. And incarcerated, man. So now I'm going to go into some prior research and analysis I've done in this mass incarceration system, man, and how it directly affects Jakes, man, socioeconomically, man, especially, man. Just mash up the whole so-called black community, man. So Salakia. So going back to the 1960s, man, corporate and government interests sought to profit off of this large exploitable Jake population, man, African American population, man. So they try to come up with, so they contemplated many different methods to try to oppress and oppress Jake, but at the same time profit off Jake, just like they were doing during slavery, man. And one of the best ways they came up with was what? The prison system, man. The prison system. Because constitutionally, you become a slave once again. Once again, once you enter the prison system. And slaves is the main catalyst in the wealth and the prosperity of any nation, man. And any people, man. So the inception of this modern day phenomenon of mass incarceration among communities of color dates back to the 1960s and President Lyndon Johnson's declaration of the War on Crime and Poverty in 1964. So at this time, what? You had the Civil Rights Movement, man. And Lyndon Johnson was the one to pass the Civil Rights Act, man. So on one side, it was all smoke and mirrors, man. Because on one side, they were pretending to grant Jake equal rights to Esau Edom. But on the other hand, they declared a war on crime and poverty, man. And who are the main people subject to crime and poverty? Those who are on the bottom end of the socio-economic ladder in any society, man. And who is that in America, man? Especially at that time, the tribe of Judah, the so-called African Americans. So he really declared war on you Judites, man, so-called African Americans. So the system was all friggin' smoke and mirrors, man. On one side, Esau pretending to help you Jakes out, grant you Jakes equal rights. But same way, he declaring war on you, man. Showing Esau is a perfect devil. The rampant inequalities that face communities of color, so-called Jake communities, were disproportionately in the sectors of economics, educational opportunities, and upward mobility, man, in society. Why? Because all those faculties, man, that leads to the upliftment of a people, man, education, economics, all of those things were fields and sectors in which Jake were prohibited from excelling in, man. You know what I mean? If you was a Jake that excelled in those sectors, man, Esau will shut you down, man. And a lot of the time just eliminate you and take you out. So this started, and this mass incarceration phenomenon was both inclusive of both Democrats and Republicans, man. Dating back to Lyndon B. Johnson, who was a Democrat himself, and continued on through all the Democratic and Republican presidents up to this present day. So one of the main slogans that they use to push in the media to push this mass incarceration campaign was the slogan of law and order, man, keeping law and order, man, of which they put these in the mindset of these Edomites, man, in the popular media in a frenzy to be scared of Jake, man, pushing that imagery that Jake is a natural brute beast, man, which many have become. But Esau, you the real brute beast, man. You the real devil, man. So they pushed, starting with Lyndon B. Johnson, man. They pushed this law and order campaign, man, and criminalized Jake, man. They criminalized Jake, man. They criminalized poverty. You know what I mean? Which Jake, the vast majority of Jake is subject to. You know what I mean? So they criminalized Jake and put, quote unquote, white America in a frenzy whereby it was easily accepted to lock Jake up in exponential numbers, man. So they basically labeled Jake as the main lawbreakers in society, man. So Ronald Reagan, who in the 1960s and 70s were the governor of California, and Richard Nixon, who was the president during the late 60s and 70s, they were known for enforcing harsh punishments for illegal drugs and gang activities. So the harsh punishment for illegal drugs and gang activities, of which these illegal drugs were what? Being pumped in to the so-called black communities, man. And the gang activities was something that were mainly in the black communities, man, which in its genesis, a lot of these quote-unquote gangs, they really started out as protection for the so-called African Americans, man. And over the time, they have divulged into what we see today, where you have Negroes killing Negroes. But back then, they label a lot of these social movements, man, Black Panthers, Black Liberation Army, as gangs, man. And were able to what? Arrest these jakes and lock them up, man. Along with illegal drugs, man. They pump these into the black communities, and Jake, because of poverty, man, and the fucked up conditions in the black communities, hey, Jake started selling these drugs to make money, man. The quick, fast money. And what? Esau, same way, profit off of the drugs that they were pumping into the black communities, and same way profited off of locking you Jakes up and making you Jakes slaves once again, man, in his prison system. So one scholar, Clayton Hodgin, he wrote this article, Crime and Criminalization, which is a New York Press article dating back to 1964. He says what? Criminality is a social status defined by the way in which an individual is perceived, evaluated, and treated by legal authorities. A person becomes a criminal when others ascribe this status to him. Hey, so Esau perfected the criminalization of Jake, man. So Jake became a criminal. Why? Because in Esau's mass media to this day, they push that agenda of Jake being what? A criminal, a gangbanger, man, a drug dealer, a gunman, a killer, all these things, man. So when these Edomites see Jake on the street, man, they ascribe that status to Jake, man, of being a criminal, man. So when they hear, yo, over 1 million Jakes day in prison, hey, they're like, well, that's where it belongs, man. Because why? They're criminals, man. So Esau is a perfect devil, man. He basically goes on to say everyone violates the law, but prosecution and persecution is often the case with those populations labeled as criminals, with corporate criminals being overlooked. So these tax evaders, man, these people committing all type of fraud, white collar crime as they call it, mainly Edomites, hey, they being overlooked, man. While Jake, you know what I mean, being a street guy, man, selling drugs or whatever, gang banging or whatever. Hey, he's criminalized as a super criminal in Esau's media, man. While the people who really fucking up the economy, stealing your social security money, stealing your 401k money, frigging up your investments, man, frigging up the whole economic infrastructure, causing recessions. Hey, they are overlooked, man. They are given a slap on the wrist. While Jake, you so-called African Americans and down the rest of the tribes, you are ascribed as being the super criminal, man. Hey, like Hillary Clinton said, what? The super predator. So social norms and laws are incredibly skewed towards status and wealth, being that poverty and racism affects the most vulnerable, who are left with the labeling of criminal and no opportunities, man, and lack of opportunities, man. So hey, so what? Social norms and laws, man. Who set them up, man? Esau, Edom, man. Who control the judiciary system, man? Esau, Edom, man. So he make laws and statutes that specifically target you jakes, man, and criminalize you jakes, man. Allowing to what? Mass incarcerate you jakes, man. Lock you jakes up, you Judites up, man, and the rest of the tribes are at exponential numbers. So, hey, since the 1960s, hey, there have been political calls for tougher sentencing policies. And what? They found receptive ears among the Edomite community, man, the white community, man, where Jake was being punished with mandatory minimums, man. You know what I mean? Your three, what? They had that 3 strikes and you're out. You know what I mean? You commit three felonies or whatever, and you have to serve life in prison, man. You become a lifelong slave, man. You know what I mean? You have mandatory minimums, where if you do an armed robbery or whatever, mandatory minimum of 15 years, nothing less. You know what I mean? Hey, Esau set the system up, hey, proper to catch you jakes up, man. So political policy under Presidents Reagan and Bush saw the toughest period on crime, man, with the war on drugs. And you have a scholarly researcher, Wright, Eric Wright, who wrote the book The Politics of Punishment in 1993. He writes what? He showcases that the increasing funding provided to the federal government through congressional legislation allowed for a large increase in the police presence in inner cities. So what? So Congress passed legislations during the 80s and 90s to what? Increase police presence in the inner cities, man. And with a larger police presence come what? An increase in arrests, convictions, and what? The prison population. You have a bigger prison population, a bigger slave population, man. So Esau sending more policemen. Congress provided funding for the police department to employ more officers and deploy them to what? Jake communities, man. Black and Hispanic communities, man. To arrest you, Jake, are rapid numbers, man. The political and physical agenda of the Reagan and Bush administration have been quite successful. Federal spending on unemployment and federal spending on employment have been cut in half, while corrections, which is the prison system, spending had increased 521%. So Reagan and Bush administrations, man, top devils, Reagan and Bush increased the correction, the prison system budget spending by 521%, man. 521%, man. Hey, they meant they were gonna lock you jakes up, man. Hey, Esau is a perfect devil, man. And this is how it hasn't stopped, man. Bush Jr., Clinton, man. Clinton calling you jakes, super predators, man. Clinton passed what? The crime bill, man. The crime bill, which locked you jakes up at a phenomenal level, man. And then Bush Jr. came in, and the prison population continued to grow. Obama came in, the prison's population for Jake still in the millions, man. And to the modern day, man, Trump is in there, man. And guess what? Hey, Trump is targeting who? Especially, man, you got Judah already, but he's now targeting who? Northern Kingdom, Issacharites, man. Through what? The immigration detention centers, man, which is nothing but prisons by another name, man. So the rest of the presidents, man, they started with who? Judah. They got Judah, man. Have Judah in hardcore slavery in the prison system, man. In the prison system. And now, guess what? They're going to get you Issacharites, man, and you Zebulonites that trying to cross the border, man, and putting your ass in immigration detention centers, putting your ass in immigration detention centers, which are nothing but prisons, man. And they're putting your ass to work same way. Same way how they got Judah, the head tribe. Now they got all the tribes, man, over the process of time, man. Starting with Lyndon B. Johnson, you know what I mean? Reagan, Bush, Clinton, Bush Jr., Obama, now Trump. Hey, man, so, hey, Esau is a perfect devil, man. Esau is a perfect devil, man. You know what I mean? So this mass incarceration system, man, hey, this is one of the main curses and predicaments affecting Jake, man. Prophesied in the scriptures, man. You know what I mean? And Lord's willing, I will do, I'm going to do more, couple more lessons, diving more into the different aspects of the mass incarceration system, man. The different dynamics of mass incarceration, man. You know what I mean? So this is just like a brief overview, man. You know what I mean? A brief overview of how Esau still to this day have you Jakes, blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans in slavery, man, through the prison system, man. And with that, I want to say, Kal Halal Yom Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai Bahashim Harakakodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. And shalom to all the sincere Akim out there across the four winds, the four corners of the earth, pushing this world in truth and sincerity. Shalom.